Wow, that of course was the U.S. presidential motorcade, and that's of course when the United States usually takes tank-like vehicles, flies them halfway around the world to attend climate conferences in order to deal with the problems of emissions by of course limiting your consumption for the greater good of the planet. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudowski here of WeAreChange.org, and oh boy, do we have a lot of important information to get into, as of course it looks like Don Lemon is in hot water, while the rest of CNN tries to outdo him in his hypocrisy, all of course as the Prime Minister of New Zealand gets absolutely stunted, and some would say cold stone stunnered by a simple question. Why was that question so powerful? Why did she refuse to answer it? Well, we're going to be getting into that, plus a lot more, all on this independent media organization. And for today's video, I was either going to start it off with this motorcade or with just, more crazy scenes from democratic cities which George Soros appointed attorney generals. But I definitely think this luxurious, elitist, private jet attending climate conference is definitely more topical, as of course your puppets and corporatist world leaders are coming together in the most severe examples of decadence in order to lecture you about how you are the problem because you haven't cut back on your carbon enough. Yeah, when we have individuals like Jeff Bezos that are literally flying on their private jets, Bill Gates that are enjoying lavish parties on their private yachts, creating policies that of course will hurt the consumer, raise the prices of household goods, all in the name of climate justice with policies that absolutely benefit them and screw everyone else over, especially of course, the small businesses that have to comply with a lot of these regulations, made-up rules, decrees that aren't able to because they don't have money to be able to do so. The big multinational corporations that were given an unfair advantage with, the lockdowns that allowed them to be open while closing down everyone else. The crazy amounts of corporate socialism, corporate welfare that goes to these companies. To have these people call for more restrictions is just absolute mind-boggling and leaves us with the question, when is enough enough? In yesterday's video, we talked about this very specific issue in greater detail, especially when it comes to some of the made-up decrees, lockdowns, and restrictions that were made up for sickness, which, according to many social political scientists, is being copy and pasted with similar policies that are called for when it comes to, quote, needed actions for the environment. This, of course, as they turn a blind eye to China and other developing countries that are responsible for a vast amount of pollution, along, of course, with one of the biggest polluters out there, and that, of course, is the U.S. military-industrial complex. We're going to tell you the latest developments with that in just a little bit, but you would think, hey, we want to help the environment, we want to stop pollution. Okay, let's actually deal with the places and institutions and large industries that are doing this, and no, not at all. Biden's going to, of course, regulate oil and gas, which he has been doing extensively already. You see those regulations already at the pumps when you're trying to get some gas inside of your car. Now we're going to have more regulations on oil and gas, specifically here domestically, which of course will translate to us just getting the oil from Saudi Arabia even more now. When you cut energy production in the United States, you need to, of course, supplement it somewhere else, and that, of course, will directly benefit Saudi Arabia, which, because of Biden's policies, we already have been importing a crap ton of. Who will these policies and regulations most affect? Well, you, especially when you're at the pump. And again, one of the largest polluters, the U.S. military-industrial complex, which it looks like now is setting its sights on Iran, as the U.S. Secretary of State just announced that he won't rule out military action against Iran over, of course, negotiations that are happening over its previous nuclear deal that Iran had with Barack Obama. When negotiations fail, there's nothing like saying we're going to extrajudicially murder some of your people by drone striking them or attacking them as a negotiation tactic, which it looks like the Secretary of State is utilizing here during this situation. There's also reports of Russian troops building up on the Ukrainian border. There's other reports that are alleging, according to the Wall Street Journal, that Afghan's government forces are joining ISIS-K. Again, so much disinformation, so much fake news, so much propaganda in this realm. I might dedicate a video to this just in itself, but just because you read a headline doesn't mean it's absolutely true. There's a lot of things that the establishment, that the administration tells you that are not true at all, and there's a lot of things you should question, especially when it comes to someone that has been double masking, took 2 doses of a procedure, and still just came back positive within the Biden administration for sickness that, let's be honest here, the majority of the mainstream media has been fear-mongering about from the very beginning. I'm always with believing and trusting the science, but sadly, many people are just trusting the television. There's a big difference between the two, and that's why to even discuss this issue, we had to create another platform, another safe space. Some people call it a cult, some people call it a secret society, and that, of course, is LukeUncensored.com. I hope to see you there later on today, as I will be doing yet another video, just for members only, specifically detailing the vast amounts of cardiac arrests that have been happening all throughout this country, specifically with young boys. What's happening here? Well, we're going to try to do our best to answer that in another video that will only be available on LukeUncensored.com, since, of course, there's issues that we can't get into that are too spicy for this platform. And I, of course, sincerely hope to see you there later on today. Now, something very interesting has been happening, especially when it comes to a lot of the people that have been, I would say, fear-mongering the most, Karening the most, wagging their finger, blaming and attacking people for trying to live their lives. A lot of people in the media establishment, like, of course, Don Lemon, that heavily criticizes people for not wearing masks and has routinely attacked people in Florida for just living their lives, as he's seen in Florida living his life without a mask. Something that, of course, is a big no-no, according to Don Lemon, as, of course, him and his network have been berating people as being careless, unthoughtful, and even dangerous for not wearing a mask. And I know what some people are saying, hey, he was outdoors, you don't really need to wear a mask according to the science outdoors. And then CNN staff inside of their headquarters said, hold my beer. I want to add to this hypocrisy, as CNN's own Jake Tapper just tweeted that they are going to be doing a bake-off, celebrating it by, of course, highlighting CNN staff members, some of them plump, some of them obese, not wearing masks indoors during their, quote, bake-off. If CNN found out what CNN was doing, they would denounce and attack them immediately for such absolutely reckless, dangerous behavior. Now, to have obese people subjected to this carelessness is an absolute crime against humanity, especially when you look at the data and those people who are most affected by this sickness, of course, being correlated with obesity. Jake Tapper answered back to, of course, his viewing audience that were just at awe, so confused about their prophet disobeying his own commandments, that Jake Tapper had to answer back in a following tweet talking about, hey, we generally do wear masks around the office, and we only did it for the photo. Sure, Judas Tapper, sure. But it's nice to know that CNN took some time off from their foaming at the mouth dribble and actually did something productive like a cookout, momentarily preventing one of their commentators for talking about how "Let's Go Brandon" is a, quote, form of hate speech. Now, this kind of eye-opening, stunning hypocrisy and attentiveness for being a self-serving clown is also perfectly represented by the Prime Minister of New Zealand, that literally shut down her own press conference because she was asked a question which wasn't approved by the established, credited, corporate, brown-nosing media establishment. A pretty important question. This is, as of course, the Prime Minister was recently talking about how everyone was on the same page. Everyone was all in agreement with the procedure that some people can't medically take but are being forced to. When someone decided to ask a question, why haven't these procedures or mandates worked that well in Israel, where Israeli connected government scientists have literally come out and said that this procedure from Pfizer is just 39% effective? This, as even NPR is reporting, that Israel has some of the highest compliance rates, the highest participation rates when it comes to this procedure, and is also seeing a dramatic surge in cases that have been correlated with it. Again, correlation does not prove causation, but there is something to talk about here, especially with other world leaders. What is the response of a world leader surrounding this particular question? Someone that is implementing the same kind of Israeli policy in her country? What's her response to all of this? No, he was just asking a question that wasn't just worshiping or praising big government, but questioning the narrative. And I thought that question was legitimate. There was definitely more of a professional way to handle this. And I would say the New Zealand Prime Minister failed in every aspect here. Having only approved questions by the corporate press doesn't build trust. It builds skepticism, which there sure is a lot of. It's also important to remind you that this is the same Prime Minister of New Zealand that agreed that she is creating a two-tier society of people who have privileges, who comply with government, and of course, people who don't. Something, of course, being implemented in Germany right now, as we're finding out that some of Germany's largest companies are segregating their staff, whether they had a procedure or not, putting them in segregated areas, which some people have complained about being akin to discrimination. This, as the Chancellor of Germany just announced that there's going to be more severe restrictions for people who haven't taken an oath of compliance with this procedure. Meanwhile, I think the science is clear, even according to the CDC, that if you have taken this procedure, you could still spread the sickness. What's really going on here? Well, according to the first comment underneath this post, we're moving to step number 7 of the 10 stages of democide. If you don't know what democide is, I would definitely recommend looking that term up. While, of course, here in the United States, there is a workers' rebellion. What's happening here? How impactful is it? How important is it? Well, we're going to be talking about that all exclusively on LukeUncensored.com, as of course I will be continuing my video from here on that specific platform where there's absolutely no holds bar. I hope to see you there. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys actively sharing this video with your friends and family members. Truly, it's one of the only ways that these videos could actually get out there to the general public, to the Kyles and Karens that need to hear this important alternative perspective of reality more than ever. If you didn't like anything that I did, let me know what it was down in the comment section below, and dislike the video if you disliked it. If you liked it, click like. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. This is why. I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.